In the luxurious home of superstar Sophia, her bodyguard Will is assembling a puzzle when the doorbell rings. The man opens the door and sees Paul standing on the doorstep in a new suit. Paul asks the bodyguard to call Sophia as he intends to propose to her. Will tells him to leave or he will have to call the police. However, Paul insists that Sophia is his girlfriend and will soon marry him. Paul reminds Will that his wife has passed away and that Sophia only pities him, which is why she allows him to do puzzles with her. But she loves Paul and he intends to wait for Sophia to return. However, upon hearing about the police, Paul leaves. Will returns to his puzzle, but then the doorbell rings again, and it's Paul once more. But this time, he is holding a knife to his throat, threatening to end his life if Sophia does not become his wife. Will realizes that the young man is having an episode, as he has mistaken the bodyguard for Sophia, and he agrees to marry him. Paul lowers the knife from his throat, embraces his bride, and then plunges the blade into the bodyguard's back. After that, he runs into the house, goes through all the rooms, and then takes a bath and dances, enjoying the treats he finds in the refrigerator. Meanwhile, Will regains consciousness, and from afar, the sounds of police sirens can be heard. Sometime later, Sophia and her boyfriend Rhodes are spending time together, filming a home video, when Sophia's assistant, Kayla, announces Will's arrival. The singer is overjoyed by her bodyguard's recovery and hurries to introduce him to the new guard at the front gate. Then she shows him the nearly completed puzzle, which she finished while he was in the hospital. Rhodes is surprised by such a hobby, and when Kayla brings out a new puzzle, he notices that a piece is missing from the old one. Will leaves to visit his daughter, Abby, who is waiting for him at her aunt's house. The girl is upset that her father intends to return to his dangerous job. On top of that, Paul called her again today, suffering in the institution. Her father tells her to ignore his calls. Meanwhile, Paul's friend, J.H., receives a letter from him in which Paul asks him to prepare everything according to the plan. The man loads a large chest into his pickup truck and drives it to the specified location. That night, Sophia and Rhodes head to a nightclub, while the news on TV reports the escape of 2 patients from a psychiatric clinic, Paul and Penelope. Upon learning about this, Will rushes to Sophia's house, asking his daughter to stay with Aunt Eleanor. At this time, J.H. meets the escapees. Paul introduces him to Penny, whom he considers his personal assistant, responsible for organizing the wedding. Meanwhile, Sophia and Rhodes arrive home, where they are met by Will, who informs them of Paul's escape. Penny notices that J.H. is missing an eye, but the man refuses to discuss the topic. The trio arrives at the house of a priest. Penny knocks on the door and asks for help with a broken car. The girl looks so innocent that the priest immediately agrees to take a look at the engine. At the same time, Rhodes is preparing to leave for home, but Will asks him to stay and tells him that when Paul stabbed him, he himself called the police. Suddenly, Aunt Eleanor calls. Will advises her to call the police and immediately sets off home, asking Rhodes not to leave Sophia alone. Rhodes wanders through the rooms and finds a list of several famous men's names on Sophia's desk, among which is his own surname. He realizes that he was nothing more than a publicity stunt for the pop star. Feeling deceived, he prepares to leave. Meanwhile, a police officer arrives at Aunt Eleanor's house. He sees nothing suspicious outside but agrees to keep watch over her and the girl until Will arrives, even though he has to wake up early tomorrow for an audition at the theater where he hopes to get a role in a musical. Meanwhile, Sophia suggests to Rhodes that they start a new puzzle, but she notices his distress. She doesn't understand what has happened until he admits that he knows about her list. At that moment, the guard at the front gate notices a large chest standing in the yard. He steps outside to take a look just as the lights go out in the house. Sophia tells Rhodes that such power outages happen quite often, but she doesn't know where the circuit breaker is. After all, she owns many houses. This upsets Rhodes even more, as she seems to be implying that she is incredibly wealthy and can do whatever she wants. She reminds him that he isn't poor either, but he simply cannot accept that their relationship was nothing but an illusion. Meanwhile, Penny enters the security booth. At this time, Sophia and Rhodes argue, as the woman believes she could have died if she had been home that day. Angry, she kicks him out while Penny kills the guard by smashing a computer monitor over his head. Left alone in the house, Sophia locks the windows and doors, but she feels as if someone is there in the darkness. She walks around, closing cabinet doors and turning off the stove, which she does not remember lighting. Meanwhile, Rhodes finds the electrical panel in the garage and restores power to the house. And there, standing right behind Sophia, is Paul. Hearing his voice, she freezes in shock. He apologizes for leaving her, but now he has returned and is ready to explain everything. Sophia tries to run, but she cannot open the window. Outside, Rhodes sees her frantic movements and realizes something is wrong. Just then, he witnesses Paul striking her over the head, causing her to lose consciousness. Meanwhile, Abby tells her aunt that Paul lost his sanity when his girlfriend suddenly passed away during one of Sophia's concerts. He replaced his grief and pain with a mad obsession, deciding to make Sophia his wife. At that moment, Will arrives, but he sees no sign of the police officer outside. He urges the woman and the girl to get into the car, completely unaware that just a few minutes earlier, the officer, who had been rehearsing his performance right on the sidewalk, noticed that his bicycle chain was missing. While the man was trying to figure out who could have done it, JH attacked him from behind, strangling him with the same chain, then dragging the body away. Now, Will leads the woman and the girl to the car, telling them to get inside while he inspects the sidewalk. Finding nothing, he gets into the vehicle, where the murderer is already waiting, holding his loved ones at gunpoint. JH orders him to drive to Sophia's house, where Paul is already expecting them. There, Paul tends to Sophia's wound and opens the door for Penny, who admits that she has killed someone. Sometime later, Sophia regains consciousness in her rehearsal room, where Paul announces that he is ready to stay with her forever. The singer tries to appeal to his reason, reminding him of his deceased girlfriend, but he excitedly informs her that he has already booked the Kazuar Chapel for their wedding ceremony. The girl decides to play along and promises to show him the house and the jacuzzi, but Paul laughs. He has been here many times before and knows exactly where everything is. Meanwhile, JH forces Eleanor to stop the car, pulls Will out, and leads him to the roadside. He then shoots him in the back of the head. Afterward, he returns to the car and orders them to keep driving. At Sophia's house, Paul introduces the singer to Penny, announcing that she is a fan of the star and also plays the piano, dreaming of performing a duet with Sophia. Leaving the women alone, Paul heads to the pool to relax, celebrating his upcoming wedding. Later, he puts on a suit while Penny shows Sophia the dress they bought for her. The final touch in Paul's plan is a ceremonial dagger, which, according to him, will ensure eternal love with the woman he has chosen. At this moment, JH arrives at the mansion with Eleanor and Abby. Paul greets them as honored guests. Penny urges Sophia to finally put on the dress. It turns out that she herself has feelings for Paul, but she is happy to participate in this event, even though she doesn't find Sophia particularly beautiful. Sophia asks Penny to fetch her makeup bag from her room. When the girl leaves, the singer grabs a guitar, preparing to strike Penny. As someone enters, she swings and hits Rhodes instead. The young man loses consciousness and collapses. Meanwhile, Paul tells Abby that she will be the flower girl at their wedding, and a dress has already been bought for her. Suddenly, a banging and cries for help come from inside the chest. It turns out that the priest, who was supposed to officiate the wedding, is locked inside. At the same time, Sophia revives Rhodes and apologizes for hitting him. He, however, notices Penny approaching and pushes Sophia aside, taking the intended baseball bat, strike himself, losing consciousness once again. Sophia and Penny engage in a fight, which briefly pauses when the psychopath discovers a piano in the room. She asks Sophia to sing a duet with her. The singer realizes this is the easiest way to distract the killer and joins Penny. The girl turns out to be quite talented, and soon as Rhodes regains consciousness, he watches in amazement as Sophia passionately gives herself over to her favorite activity. Suddenly, Penny lunges at Sophia and tries to kill her, pushing her onto the terrace. She prepares to set Sophia on fire, but the singer manages to grab a sharp metal rod and plunges it into Penny's stomach. She then douses her with flammable liquid, ready to set her ablaze, but stops herself, unwilling to sink to the level of a murderer. Believing Penny to be harmless, Sophia returns to the room and tries to help Rhodes, but then Penny attacks her again. Sophia shoves her into the recording booth and throws a burning piece of paper inside, leading to Penelope's death. She then extinguishes her remains with a fire extinguisher. Meanwhile, Paul decides to check on his bride, as quite some time has passed since Penny began preparing Sophia. Upon learning that Paul has taken a child hostage, Sophia asks Rhodes to wait for her and tries to escape the house. So when Paul enters the room, he finds only Rhodes and mistakes him for Sophia. His mind often deceives him. At the same time, Sophia enters the living room where she sees the captives and JH standing guard over them. Paul, meanwhile, shows Rhodes the ceremonial dagger, a weapon once gifted to warriors at their weddings. He promises to protect Sophia. Morning arrives as Sophia's assistant discovers Will. Paul's one-eyed friend had missed his shot and only slightly wounded the bodyguard. Now Will is racing toward Sophia's house. But when he arrives, he finds it empty, except for an invitation from which he learns the location of the wedding. At the church, Paul stands beside the priest, waiting for the ceremony to begin. In front of him stands the real Sophia, but suddenly he asks her to sit down, claiming that today is not her day. Shocked, the woman takes a seat next to Abby. JH looks puzzled, but Paul reassures him that the bride is about to arrive. Abby pretends to scatter flower petals just as Rhodes enters through the doors, wearing Sophia's wedding dress. Will, appearing at that moment, immediately steps in to play the role of the father of the bride and leads the young man to the altar. He asks for permission to attend the ceremony. Paul allows it, and before taking his seat, Will discreetly hands Sophia a pocket knife. The ceremony begins, and Sophia finally speaks out against the marriage, feeling she is indirectly responsible for everything that has happened. But Paul ignores her, begging the pastor to continue. The priest declares them husband and wife. Paul kisses the bride, and Rhodes is forced to play along. However, during the kiss, Paul stabs Rhodes with a knife. Sophia screams in horror as Will attacks Paul and his best man, but JH takes Abby hostage, not even knowing why. As he struggles to maintain control, the wounded Rhodes manages to kill him with Paul's dagger. Sometime later in Paul's mind, the wedding ends with a colorful and joyful celebration. He and Sophia ride off together on their honeymoon. In reality, the police have surrounded the church and have begun their investigation of the events. Seeing how far Rhodes was willing to go to protect her, Sophia decides to continue their relationship. Meanwhile, Will announces his resignation from dangerous work, as he can no longer risk his family's safety. At that moment, Paul is being transported in a police car, but he refuses to acknowledge the officer at the wheel or the wailing sirens. He is convinced that he and Sophia are on their honeymoon. Only occasionally does reality creep in, but he quickly retreats back into his happy world. Of course, the film is meant as entertainment, but while the dark humor may be amusing at times, the true horror lies in the subconscious dangers of the human mind, capable of committing terrifying acts.